is sick and keep up the amazing work that you do. I'd like to share my own story with you that took place nearly 10 years ago. My encounter with the Skinwalker. I was around 14 when my dad got transferred to Roniket, a picturesque military town in the hills of Uttarakhand, India. It was one of those calm places where every corner looks like a postcard. Lush green, chilled breeze, and the comforting silence of a secluded hill station. My dad, being in the army, was used to hopping from one containment to another, and we followed wherever he went. This time, it felt like a blessing. The house we were assigned to was a solid 3 BHK on the edge of the colony. It had a beautiful front porch that overlooked the descending hill, filled with neat rows of tall pine trees. The army colony was quiet, nestled into the hillside, and surrounded on 3 sides by dense forest. It wasn't the kind of place that felt eerie or off, not at first. Roniket felt like a permanent vacation spot. Life felt calm, maybe even perfect. The first few weeks went by smoothly. I made new friends at my school. My mother was making the house pretty and neat like she always did. My dad would go to army early in the morning and come late at evening from work. I'd often sit on the porch during the golden hour, watching the sun disappear behind the thick foliage. The trees had enough space between them for sunlight to seep through, casting long golden beams over the grass and dirt. Birds chirped till sundown, and at night the cicadas took over. Nothing felt wrong until that one night. My parents had been invited to an overnight function at one of my dad's senior officers' homes, formal plus informal, with another army folks and their families. But I stayed back, hesitant to be around people I was new to. My parents insisted me to come along, but I stayed back. The idea of a full night of Maggie, movies, and being home alone sounded like bliss. By around 9:30, I was full and comfortably wrapped in a blanket on the living room sofa, watching a movie on my laptop with my headphones on. At nearly 10 p.m., I paused the movie. I remember the exact time because I checked the clock to see how much runtime was left. The wind outside had picked up a bit, rattling the window slightly, but that was usual in the hills. That's when I heard a knock. Soft, deliberate, from the front door. I took off my headphones, heart sinking. My first thought was maybe my parents returned early, but no, they had clearly told me they wouldn't be back until morning. I walked cautiously to the door. No peephole, just a small curtain on the window beside it. I reached out and gently parted the curtain. Nobody. The porch was empty. A cold draft slipped through the edges of the door. The air felt thick, like something unseen was breathing just beyond the walls. I stepped back, locking the door and bolting to the couch. Then I turned off the lights and returned to the sofa in front of my laptop. At around 10:30 p.m., another knock. This time it was immediately followed by a voice. "Beta, darwaza kolo. Open the door, son." It was my mother's voice, gentle, calm, familiar, but it echoed strangely, as though spoken into a tunnel. I froze. No car lights, no engine sound, no announcement of arrival. "Beta, darwaza kolo. Open the door, son." A pause, then, "I forgot my keys." My body tensed. My parents would never return without calling first. This was something else. Plus, the voice didn't sound comforting. I always felt an ease whenever my mom called me. This was making my nerves cold. And then it called again, but this time it was my voice. Please open the door, I'm scared." Exactly how I sounded. The stutter, the tone, even the slight nasal quality when I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. My feet refused to move. I couldn't even move. "Please," it repeated, "open the door, please." Then silence. I waited, held my breath. Every minute stretched into eternity. Then footsteps, slow, moving around the porch, scraping against the concrete, then toward the side of the house, the window to the guest bedroom. I dashed to the kitchen and grabbed the biggest knife I could find, though I knew deep down that it wouldn't help. Something about the voice, the mimicked cry, felt unnatural. 11 p.m., a thud against the back wall. I came back to my senses, hearing for any movements, even though I was nearly shitting bricks. Then scratching. I crept through the corridor towards my room, heart thudding so hard I could barely hear anything else. As I neared my room and looked towards the back window, I saw it. A silhouette, not entirely human, too tall, its limbs slightly too long. But the head looked like mine. It was staring right at me through the glass, its face nearly pressed against it. I couldn't see its eyes, just a stretched, grim version of my own face. The mouth didn't move, but I heard it. "Please, let me in." I backed away slowly, bumping into the cabinet beside me. The thing's head twitched, snapped sideways as if startled. Then it started laughing, not loud, not guttural, just a soft giggle, like a child who found something funny, only it sounded like me. The laughter followed me as I backed into the hall. The windows all around the house seemed to echo it. And then it stopped. Silence again. I didn't sleep. I stayed hidden under the bed, knife in hand. It was quiet for around 30 minutes when I started hearing footsteps again outside. They were not in sync. It sounded like it was hopping and moving in circles. I finally gathered the courage to go to the living room to get my laptop and my phone. I unlocked the door that led to my living room. There was a piece of paper tucked under the laptop, folded neatly. Inside, a message written in crude handwriting. "You already let me in." I don't remember hearing the front door open. I don't remember hearing anyone walking in. I don't remember crawling back into bed. But I remember waking up to the next morning drenched in sweat. I could hear my parents knocking on the front door. I could feel the sunlight on my face, and I knew I was okay. I never told anyone, not a soul. But sometimes when I'm lying in bed late at night, I hear a knock and a voice, my voice, softly whispering, "Beta, darwaza kulo." Open the door, son. I think I have a skinwalker after me. Now, I hate to say I can't provide a reasonable explanation for this, but this all started a little over a year ago when me and my friend were riding dirt bikes at night. Now, this should be mentioned. We lived next to a huge forest, about 100 miles of woods, and it's in the middle of nowhere. We had been riding for about 10 minutes when I heard a scream, one that sounded almost like a woman. I pulled over, turned the dirt bike off, and listened. My friend came over, confused, asking what I was doing, and I said, "Did you not hear the scream?" He replied, sounding so confused, but he was right next to me. There was no way I heard it and he didn't. We waited for about 5 minutes and then just kept riding. I thought I just imagined it, because why would somebody be out in the woods at night? Then after about 20 minutes, my friend motioned for me to come over. He looked pale and asked if I heard the screams in the woods. I said no, and he said he could have sworn he heard his name being screamed from the woods. So we decided to just go home and forget about it. Now, fast forward a few months, it was snowing out, and me, my sister Emma, my sister's 2 friends, Caitlin and Ella, and my neighbor Dave were all messing around in the snow. Someone had the idea to go explore the woods to find a good spot to make an igloo.
We all agreed. After we'd been walking about a mile into the woods, we noticed a pair of footprints that looked like someone had been walking barefoot. But who would be walking barefoot in 25 degrees weather in the snow? We all stopped and stared at them. Me and Dave had completely forgotten about the screaming in the woods by this point. We all just assumed it was maybe a homeless person, since people from the town about 20 miles away would sometimes come into the woods to build little forts. So we kept walking. About 15 minutes later, we found a clearing we thought would be perfect for an igloo. We got to work. After about an hour, the sun started to set. As we began to head back, it went dead silent. No birds, no nothing. You could hear our breathing. Ella joked, "You know, if it's quiet, it's predators nearby." We all kind of chuckled until, like on cue, we heard crunching in the trees about 20 feet away. We all froze. This sounded like someone walking. It wasn't an animal. It was planted steps. I know that sounds weird, but it sounded like whatever it was calculating where to step. Then Dave yelled out, "Hello, is somebody there?" The footsteps stopped. That's when we decided to book it home. We all took off running back to my house since it was the closest. We're about 50 yards from my driveway when Caitlin froze. She was at the front of our little line, running, probably the fastest of us. We all stopped and asked her what was wrong. Her eyes were so wide, I thought they were going to pop out of her socket. She just pointed. When we looked, nothing was there. She said she saw a naked man at least 7 feet tall with a deer head running next to us about 30 feet away. That obviously made us nervous, especially since Caitlin was not the type to lie. We ran the rest of the way home. By the time we got inside, it was pitch black out. Since we lived on the edge of the forest, we couldn't see anything outside. We decided it would be best if we all just stayed the night at me and my sister's house. Our parents said it was fine, so we spent the night watching movies and talking. Me and Dave went to my room, the girls stayed in my sister's room, and my parents had gone to sleep by then. Once we were in my room, Dave asked if I could actually thought there was something in the woods. I shrugged and said, "Who knows?" I also need to mention we have 2 dogs. They're huge with very loud barks, but they're sweet. Me and Dave went to sleep, but about 3 hours later, probably around 2 in the morning, the dogs started going crazy. Now this is a normal thing. They bark at nothing all the time, so I didn't think anything of it. I shouted for them to come here. When they did, one had her tail between her legs and was whimpering. That was weird. She never did that. I shut my door and we fell asleep. Nothing else happened for a few months. Then it was late April, spring break. Me, Dave, Emma, Caitlin, and Ella were hanging out again. We were trying to think of something to do and decided to go camping in the woods like we used to do when we were younger. We all thought it was a great idea. We got our stuff, and around 3 p.m. we started walking to a lake about 2 miles south of my house. When we got there, we set up tents, swam, and had fun until it got dark. We made a fire, s'mores, and told scary stories. Then Ella brought up the day in the snow when Caitlin thought she saw that creature. I got chills. We'd all forgotten about that. So I said, maybe it's time to go to our tents. We split into a boys' tent and a girls' tent. Later that night, I woke up and had to pee badly. I got out of the tent, walked out by the lake, and did my business. As I was getting ready to go back to the tent, I saw Dave. I walked over and whispered, "What are you doing?" He just stood there, not moving. I jokingly shoved him, but his skin was so cold, like ice. That was extremely odd, since it was June and the high that day was 98 degrees. There was no way he should have been that cold. I said, "Holy man, you're freezing." He just looked at me with a weird grin. I told him I was going back to the tent. When I laid down, I looked over, and there he was.
Dave, sound asleep. This couldn't be possible. He was just outside. I had walked back first. No way he could have beat me. I woke him up and asked, "Were you just down by the lake?" He replied, "What are you talking about? Why did you want me to go on a walk with you at this time of night?" I was shocked. I was just peeing by the lake. I never asked you to go on a walk." He explained that he woke up to me shaking him, asking to go for a walk through the woods. At this point, we were both terrified and decided to wait until morning to tell the girls. We too scared to leave the tent. In the morning, we told them. We thought they'd laugh at us until Emma said that last night they heard scratching on a tree nearby and growling. We walked over to the trees to take a look. What we saw stopped us. There were scratch marks on the trunk about 7 feet high. We all knew no bear, no dog, no animal could have done that. We quickly packed up and went home. But last night, I started to hear tapping on my window and what sounded like Dave calling me to come here. "Hello, Snook. Long-time fan here. I've been listening for a long time now. You really helped me through my work shifts. This is a true story of when me and a couple friends decided to play hide and seek in the woods late at night. Who knows why we were so young and stupid. I have changed their names, and I would just like to add that I'm still friends with 2 out of 3 of these guys, and years later we all still talk about it and remember this story. It was one of those muggy summer nights where everything feels off, too still, too quiet, like the world is waiting for something. Me, Liam, Alfie, and Charlie were out at the field, nor far from Liam's house, the one that runs right up to the woods. The woods start where the grass stops, but they don't ease in. There's no soft transition. The edge is a solid wall, trees, thorns, brambles, all knotted together into a dense barrier like nature's own fence, impenetrable except for one opening, one big gap in the wall where the branches curve in and over, forming a dark tunnel that leads into the forest. That entrance always looked unnatural, like something had ripped it open, like a mouth. We'd been playing hide and seek in pairs for a while now, taking turns to count and hide. It was darker than it should have been, like the trees swallowed more than just the light. Once you stepped off the path, you could barely see your hand in front of your face without a torch. Each time it was your turn to hide, you and your partner would sneak just far enough into the woods to find a spot off the trail, kill your torch, and sit there in the pitch black. No sound but your own breath and the leaves shifting above. You just crouched there, frozen, hoping the others wouldn't find you. The last time I hid, I had this feeling, not something I could explain, just that slow creeping dread that crawls up your neck like someone was watching, not from the path, not from behind, but from the woods themselves, the deeper part, the part we never went into. I almost turned my light back on, almost said something to Liam, but I didn't. I didn't want to seem like a... So I sat there, frozen, heart beating too loud in my ears, waiting. Eventually, the other pair gave up, like we all did when it got too hard or too creepy, and shouted out to call us back. We met up at the entrance. Then Alfie and Charlie went to hide. Me and Liam gave them a minute, then went looking. We followed the path, calling out, laughing at first, thinking we'd find them crouched behind a tree or tucked into the bushes nearby. But we didn't. We kept walking deeper. The trees thickened. The shadows swallowed the light faster than they should. It got quiet. No bugs, no birds, no footsteps but ours. Eventually, we stopped looking and headed back towards the entrance. We stood just outside the wall of trees, staring into the opening, getting ready to shout to them. We give up when we suddenly heard voices. They weren't whispers. They were shouting. Alfie and Charlie. "Guys, we give up hiding. Alfie says he's scared," shouts Charlie mockingly. Then there was a pause. "Hello? We can see you. Why are you hiding? Come out." Their voices were coming from inside the woods, but we were outside. There can't have been anyone else in there. It was way too late. That's when I shouted, "Oi, we're here." A second later, they came sprinting out of the woods, out of breath and pale of shock. "There was a man," Alfie said, catching his breath, "in the trees, off the path, just crouching, knees to his chest, watching us. He didn't say nothing, Charlie added. Didn't move, just stared. I thought it was you guys messing with us. They pointed to the right of the entrance. I didn't believe 'em, thought they were winding us up. So me and Liam walked forward just a few steps and started grabbing sticks and rocks. We aimed straight for the spot they pointed at, the right side of the entrance where the brush was thickest and the trees tangled like their claws. We threw a rock, crack, silence, another stick, snap, still nothing. We kept throwing. Each time we paused, listened. We would shout into the woods as well, things like, "Come out now," or "Say something." Not a single sound came back, no shift, no crunch of movement, not even a bird startled by the noise. It was dead silent. We threw one more rock, heavier this time. It thudded somewhere deeper in. Then, from the left side of the entrance, ding, a text notification. All of us spun. It wasn't distant. It was close, just inside the trees, where the shadows started to thicken, where the light stops reaching. We looked at each other. No one moved. Then we all pulled out our phones. No notifications, no sounds, all silent. But we all heard it, which meant someone else was in the woods and that we weren't alone. There was a man on the right and someone else, silent, watching.
From the left. We didn't speak. We just ran. One more thing. My friend told me sometime later. He looked human, but something was off. His arms were too long, like they hung lower than they should have. And the way he crouched, knees up, tucked into his chest, it didn't look natural. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his face was too smooth, like it didn't know how to show emotion. But his eyes, they were the worst part. Just solid black. No whites, no reflection. He didn't blink, they didn't speak. He just stared like he knew we'd find him eventually. But take this with a grain of salt, as it was dark and this man was only illuminated by an iPhone torch and from a distance away. But it does give me the chills to think how long we were playing before we noticed the strange man. Thanks for listening. Hi, Snook. I just wanted to say I really love your channel. The way you tell stories has honestly helped me so much at work. It keeps me focused. It makes a day go by easier. Anyway, I figured I'd share a story of my own. Just a quick heads up, though. Most of this is from my mom since I was too little to remember much myself. Also, I don't really believe in ghosts, but I do believe demons exist, and I believe they like to mess with people. So, this all happened when I was really young, and my parents were looking to buy a new house. There was this one house that my mom walked into and immediately got a bad feeling. She said the whole place gave her this nervous, heavy vibe right from the start. It was decorated in this dark, modern style, but what really stood out was all these African masks hanging on the walls. There were a lot of them. As I walked through the house, my mom said she kept feeling like she was being watched, not just once or twice, but constantly. She also told me she kept catching glimpses of something moving through doorways, like someone ducking out of sight. It freaked her out. At one point, my dad and I went downstairs to the basement. There was a door down there that led out into the garden, so we stepped outside for a bit. That left my mom alone on the main floor. She walked over to the windows to try and see us in the garden, but then she felt something hit her hard in the back. She turned around fast and saw one of those African masks lying on the floor right beside her. There was no one else inside. The only other person there was the realtor, and he was outside in the garden with my dad and me. My mom said she had never felt fear like that before. My dad later told me he had never seen her so shaken. They didn't even finish the showing. They just left. A couple of years later, we heard about something terrible that happened in that same house. A 16-year-old kid murdered his siblings in what they said was a drug-induced psychotic episode. Apparently, he had been using something that completely messed up his head. I don't know if what happened to my mom is connected, but she still gets scared whenever she talks about it. And honestly, the whole thing gives me chills, too. Regards. Hi, Snook. This is my story. To begin, I would like to say that my family has a history of being sensitive.
It skips generations, moves around, and doesn't hit every person. However, I was given the gift of being sensitive. I've always seen people, animals, energies, etc. that others can't. Of course, I always end up with friends who are also sensitive and have stories of things we see being the same. I remember a specific incident when I was younger. To keep it brief, something very sad happened in my family, and for weeks I saw a huge, tall figure following me around. I associated the figure with black feathers and a top hat, though I never actually saw either. Because of my abilities, my mom would often have new apartments and houses saged and cleansed by my aunt, who is also sensitive. My mom would refuse to go house hunting without me because she refused to move into a house that I could sense a presence in, good or bad. Now, on to my actual story. A year or two after my dad and stepmom began dating, they decided to move us all in together. They found a beautiful house that at the time had to be just under 100 years old. For reference, it was close to being considered historic in Golden, Colorado. I hadn't gotten the chance to see the house until the day we were moving in, and as soon as I stepped into the house, I knew something wasn't right. It wasn't full-on dread like I get in places like abandoned areas or cemeteries that haven't been well taken care of, but enough to notice that something was off. The house was beautiful and fully furnished, so I chalked it up to new house jitters. My sisters and I shared the attic as a bedroom, with my parents on the main floor and my brother in the basement. Again, the attic was fully furnished, and so was the basement. There was a wall that went almost halfway across the attic, partially separated in between the two. My sisters were behind the partition, while my bed sat against it. The first night was normal. In fact, my first memories of anything scary or paranormal happening were long after we moved in. I would get this reoccurring sleep paralysis, didn't know what it was at the time, where a woman would be standing just beyond the partition on my side, watching my sisters. Oddly enough, she didn't scare me. I can still picture her now, old, well-groomed, in a nightgown, with her hair in a slightly messy bun. Not exactly something that you would consider horrifying. In fact, it was when I started getting sleep paralysis and she was nowhere to be seen that I was scared. On those nights, I would see someone at the top of the attic stairs. I would just see their head peeking above. The hair of this entity was the complete opposite of the old woman's. It was, from what I could see, dirty. There were missing patches, and it would seemingly float around as if it was underwater. For some reason, the hair on this entity terrified me. Only one time I was able to see its face. For some reason, this time, it stood next to the top of the attic stairs. Its lower jaw was missing, and it cowered in the corner. I could see the bones protruding out underneath the skin, and all I could hear was this sickening clicking, as if its bones would click as it moved. After so many nights spent being completely unable to sleep, I was only about 10 or 11, waking up randomly and immediately vomiting, finding spiders in and around my bed constantly, fly infestations.
Seemingly only affected my half of the room, and finding scratches on the underside of my bed. I was left with only one option: move into the spare bedroom in the basement with my brother. Around this time, my siblings and I discovered the inside of the shed outside. At first, what we saw was normal: a lawnmower, gardening tools, old furniture, and eerily a lot of flies, dead and alive. At the back of the shed, though, sat something that gives me chills: a mannequin. It had a large round head with a large smile drawn on it. It wore a child's nightgown, not vintage or decrepit, but one with Disney princesses on it. It was tattered, sure, but nothing you wouldn't expect from sitting in an old leaky shed for a long time. Still, it scared me and my siblings enough to never go back in there. I thought moving to the basement would fix my issues. Unsurprisingly, it didn't. I was waking up more and more often to my bedroom door being forcefully shut, my closet door being flung open, and loud whispering that would echo when I woke up. I remember taking a shower in the basement and getting out to find all the drawers had been flung open with such force, mind you, that one had cracked from the force. The fly infestation also followed me downstairs. There's one incident that I remember that gives me chills even thinking about it. For reference, my bedroom had 2 closets, both on the same wall, but my bed was pressed up against one as it was rarely used. This one night, I was having nightmares more than usual, and I was unable to wake from them. I woke up in a cold sweat to find the closet at the end of my bed pulled open with such a force that it left scratches and dents at the end of my bed frame. Nothing quite like that has ever happened again, but the other eerie things still happened. Needless to say, I was more than happy to leave that house. I was too scared to say anything then, but not anymore. Also, as we were literally moving the last boxes to our new house, I swore I could see the old woman in the attic window. I still wonder what her significance of the old house was. Years later, my boyfriend and I were in the neighborhood, and we decided to drive past it. As soon as we pulled in front of the house, he sped out of the neighborhood. He told me he felt dizzy and uneasy, and that he never wanted to go around there again. Another thing I consider to be weird is when I bring up these experiences to my dad or brother, the conversation is met with awkward laughs and is almost immediately shut down. I wonder if they experience anything but are too scared to say anything. I'm not sure. Anyway, thank you for reading, and if you decide to, for sharing. I wish you luck in all your future endeavors, and I'm so excited for more episodes. Thanks, Bug. Hey Snook, been a long-time follower of your channel and love your content. This happened to me when I was 17. I'd like to stay anonymous. I like to keep what happened out of my mind. However, in recent days, I've been having some trouble sleeping because of nightmares. I apologize if this story is a bit long and if English isn't my main language. Without further ado, here it is. In the summer of 2021, I stayed for 5 weeks at my uncle's ranch in rural Mexico. I'm from Mexico City, and the ranch is different. Isolated, dry, and surrounded by hills. Almost no phone signal, barely any electricity at night, and nothing but old stories to keep your brain busy once the sun goes down. I didn't want to go alone, so I brought my best friend at the time, Martin. He was skeptical of anything supernatural, which in hindsight helped keep me grounded for a while. The first few nights were normal, hot, quiet, and we played cards or old board games. But one night, after watching a movie, we heard something. A branch snapping in the distance from the direction of the trees that lined the edge of the property. Then another and another, like someone walking or circling. We stood up and stared into the darkness, but there was nothing there, not that we could see. We laughed it off, said it was probably a cow or a coyote, but we couldn't shake the feeling that something had watched us. The nights got stranger after that. Martine and I would wake up at the exact same time, around 3:12 a.m. every night, to noises outside the window, breathing, scratching, pacing. At first, we thought we were just being paranoid, but one morning we found deep claw marks on the wood outside, too high to be a dog, too wide to be a cat. My uncle shrugged it off and said, "Just coyotes." Everyone else ignored it completely, but the workers at the ranch, they wouldn't look us in the eye when we asked. One of them, Don Choi, said just 6 words and walked away. Nahuales. Best not to mess with those things. Then came the animal. We woke up to the smell, a horrible, metallic, rotting stench, and found the carcass of what looked like a deer, but not. Its limbs were twisted unnaturally, like they've been pulled apart and reset. Its eyes were gone, and its furs had been stripped in patches. No blood, just exposed skin and bone. Someone had placed it right by the front door. Again, everyone brushed it off. Coyotes, vultures, that's just the country, my aunt said. That night, I had the first dream. I was standing on the hill behind the house. The sky was dark, but everything was lit like dusk. At the top of the hill, there was something tall, human-shaped but wrong. Its arms were too long, its head tilted like it didn't understand how to move. I couldn't run or speak. I just stood there while it watched me. I woke up gasping. Martine had had the same dream. After that, things escalated. We started hearing whispers at night. A cold wind would sweep through the house even when all the windows were shut. One night, Martine woke me up whispering, "Don't move." I thought he was joking, but then I saw his face. He was staring at the window, pale and shaking. When I looked, I saw it too. There was a silhouette by the trees, just at the edge of the ranch, human-shaped, not moving, just watching the house. We turned on every light, locked everything. It didn't sleep until the sun came up. We tried to talk about the Nahuales. In Mexican folklore, they're people, often shamans or witches who can shapeshift into animals. But the modern
understanding is darker. Some say they aren't fully human anymore, that they leave their human skin behind and walk the land in burrowed bodies, causing illness, fear, and madness. Some even believe they can enter your dreams and feed off your fear or possess your body if you're weak enough. I'd heard of skinwalkers from Native American stories too. Similar idea, shape-shifting witches, but more rooted in Navajo culture. The scary part is how alike the descriptions are. Tall, silent, staring, hating to be seen, always watching. Eventually, one of the workers, called Isais, told us his grandmother might be able to help. She was an abuela de lengua, a speaker of an indigenous dialect. She didn't call it a Nahual. She didn't call it anything at all. Just said we had drawn attention to something. That night, she came to the ranch. It wasn't like a movie. No chants, no fire, just silence. She walked the perimeter barefoot and whispering in a dialect I couldn't understand. She placed bundles of herbs and stones at each corner of the house. She told us to not look out the window, no matter what we heard, not to open the door, not even to speak. That night was the worst of all. Around midnight, the air got thick. Still, no bugs, no winds, no sound. Then came the scratching from every wall, not frantic, slow, purposeful, like it wanted us to know it was there. Martin and I sat in silence, clutching those little bundles the woman gave us. Then came the knocking, not at the front door, but at the windows, all of them. Knock, 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 like it was testing us. I swear I heard my name whispered, but when I looked at Martin, his face said he heard it too. It lasted until just before dawn, then everything stopped. The next morning, the bundles were gone, like they had never been there. No scratches on the walls, no tracks, nothing, just dust and quiet. We never talked about it again, not with the family, not even with each other. After that, the friendship eventually came apart. But about a week ago, back in the city, I started having dreams again. The same hill, the same figure, closer this time. I don't know if it was in a while, a skinwalker, or just something old and nameless that I stumbled into without meaning to. All I know is that it hasn't fully let go, and some nights I still wake up at 3:12. Hey Snuck, before we get into the story, I love your channel and hope you can keep posting for years. I love listening to your channel and it is really interesting. Please enjoy. Oh, and there is some cussing. Feel free to not say them. You ever done something so dumb you know you're gonna die before you even finish doing it? That was me, alone in a janky-ass cabin in the middle of bumfuck Arizona, smack in the territory where even the coyotes refuse to howl. I'm a wildlife biologist, or at least I was before this crap happened. Back in '98, I got sent out to monitor mountain lions near this dried-up Navajo reservation. Nobody told me it was haunted as hell. Just stay in the ranger cabin. It's free. Yeah, free like a cursed monkey's paw. So I pull up to this busted, creaky one-room cabin. The door looks like it's been clawed by Freddy Krueger after a bad acid trip. But I'm trying to be tough, right? You've survived worse, I say to myself, while swatting flies that I swear hissed at me. I unpack my gear, set up a trail cam, and settle in with a can of chili and some beef jerky that could snap teeth. No cell service, obviously, no radio either. Just me, my flashlight, and the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. And around 2 a.m., I hear footsteps, not like raccoon pitter-patter. Nah, this is 2 feet, heavy, slow, and crunching gravel outside. I peek through the curtain. Nobody, not a soul, until I realize the footsteps are still walking, but in place, right outside my window. I wake up with my boots on. Don't ever remember falling asleep. First thing I see, footprints. Freaking bare human footprints. Not around the cabin. Nope, on the goddamn roof. Nope, squared. I check my trail cam. Thing's been ripped clean off the tree. Not broken, not torn, just gone, like it was never there. And that tree, There's claw marks going 15 feet up. Cool, so I'm gonna die here, I mutter, because sarcasm is how I cope with supernatural horror. That night, I don't sleep. I drink 2 energy drinks, keep my flashlight in one hand and my knife in the other, even though I know a damn steak knife ain't gonna do shit against whatever leaves hoof prints and handprints at the same time. And right around 3:13 a.m., specific as hell because I checked, I hear it, a voice, my voice, outside going, "Hey, come help me, I'm hurt." And here's the thing, it sounded exactly like me, but wrong, like it was glitched, like someone copied my voice and hit Control-V one too many times. I ain't proud of this, but I pissed myself a little, just a little. Enough to regret only bringing 1 pair of jeans. I try to leave. Truck's dead, no lights, no engine. Batteries drained like something sucked it dry. So I do what an idiot in a horror story does. I go back inside and wait for morning. Spoiler, there's no morning here. The sun rises, yeah, but the cold doesn't leave. It's like time forgot this place. Then I see it. Just standing there, beyond the tree line, tall, lanky, like a dude who skipped leg day for 50 years but did neck stretches religiously. Its arms way too long, its head no face, just smooth skin stretched to bone. And when it turned, if you can call that twitchy, jerky movement turning, it let out this croaky wheeze and laugh like it was trying to remember how to laugh. I screamed something like, "Nope, nope, nope, fuck this," and slammed the door so hard the hinges cried. The thing didn't run, it didn't growl, it just whispered, "Let me in, Jesse. You already did." At this point, I snapped. I threw my sleeping bag in the fire pit, grabbed every match I had, and torched that cabin like it owed me rent. I didn't care if I had to
Hike 40 miles barefoot. I was done. And as I walked away, blistered feet and all, I looked back one last time, and that faceless bastard, he was waving with my hand. I got out. I survived, but I left something there. Sometimes when I sleep, I dream I'm back in that cabin, and sometimes I wake up with dirt on my boots. And last week, my girlfriend said she heard me whispering in the kitchen at 3 a.m., but I was dead asleep. Hey Snuck, this is my one true scary story. I hope you enjoy it and put it into a YouTube video. I always listen to your stuff when I play video games. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I had a friend named Owen who lived almost in the middle of nowhere. Even though we went to different schools, we stayed close. One night, my other friend, a nun, and I decided to have a sleepover at Owen's place. Sounds fun, right? Well, there's one thing about Owen's house that always creeped me the hell out. It sat right on the edge of a dense-ass forest, so thick that even in daylight you could barely see through it. And to make it worse, his street had no streetlights. As I stepped out of the car, I remember thinking, Jesus, it's fucking dark. Owen greeted me at the door, helping me carry the blankets and pillows I brought. The night started off great. We grilled burgers, played video games, and chilled in the hot tub. Like all sleepovers, we stayed up late, deciding to crash out around 1:30 or 2 a.m. We curled up in our blankets and put on a scary movie. I don't remember which one, but it was enough to fuck with my nerves. When the movie ended, we turned off the TV and tried to fall asleep. I've always had trouble sleeping at other people's houses, but whatever. Eventually, I passed out. At some point in the night, I woke up. A nun and Owen were sitting on Owen's bed, staring at the huge window that faced the woods. "The fuck are you guys doing?" I mumbled, still half asleep. Owen turned to me, his face pale. "We saw something," he whispered, "and we heard it." Against my better judgment, I got up and looked out the window. Right then, Owen's dog started going nuts. But this wasn't a normal bark. It wasn't the "I need to pee" bark or the "there's a bunny outside" growl. This was different, deep, angry, and desperate. The kind of bark that says, "There's something out there and I will fucking kill it before it gets you." And that's when I noticed something else. The woods were silent, dead silent. Normally, you could hear bugs, owls, the rustling of trees and the wind, but now, nothing, except for Owen's dog, growling like he was ready to fight for his goddamn life. And then we saw it. It stood just beyond the tree line, barely visible in the dim moonlight. It was fucking huge, at least 7 feet tall, but hunched on all fours. Its skin was pale, almost white, stretched tight over its thin, unnatural frame. It had massive, solid black eyes and a wide, lipless mouth. It looked like some little kid tried to draw a monster but didn't know what the fuck they were doing. The thing stared at us, and then, as I locked eyes with it, it opened its mouth and let out the most ear-piercing, gut-wrenching scream I had ever heard. We ran. We dove onto our beds, yanked the blankets over our heads, and just fucking laid there, too scared to move. None of us slept. We just stared at the ceiling, shaking, waiting for the sun to rise. And here's the weirdest part. Owen and a nun don't remember shit. Even Owen's parents, who were home that night, swore up and down that they hadn't heard a damn thing. But I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and I'll never fucking forget it. Hi, Snuck. I've only recently started watching your videos, binging recently, but they've made me want to share a couple of my own stories. I don't know that I'm a believer in the paranormal, but I do know that is one of my biggest curiosities. I love hearing about other people's encounters. All my adult life I've had experiences that I can't explain. To see other people sharing some of their stories is comforting, as I often feel alone. Anyways, on to my first story. I was about 20 at the time. We had only recently moved. I shared a basement apartment with my boyfriend while the rest of my family lived upstairs. On this particular day, it was only me, my 2 young cats, and my dog. My cats were probably around a year old and fearless. Nothing scared them. I was watching a group of people ghost hunt on YouTube. This group in particular was not having much luck. They tried everything, and now were trying to use cat balls, the kind that had a light inside that flashes when moved, the kind my cats had. This group of guys was begging for anything to happen, and finally it did, only it wasn't in their video. The cat ball I owned was currently down the hall from me, still in line of sight for my spot on the couch. The ball started flashing. My cats both woke up from their spots beside me, and their fur raised. The air wasn't on, there weren't any windows open, but it was flashing. It then started moving. It was slow, but there was definite movement, and it was coming towards us. Being totally rational and level-headed, I screamed and ran upstairs. All of my pets followed. We stayed up there until my boyfriend came home. Hours had passed. It was starting to get dark outside, meaning the basement would have been pitch black by now. He guided me back down the stairs, and the hallway light was on. This wouldn't have been my doing, because I sat in the dark to watch TV, and the switch was at the other end of the hall where the cat ball was when I left. The cat ball was no longer in the hallway, it was by the stairs, meaning the ball had to have rolled all the way down the hall and around the corner. Nothing else happened after my boyfriend arrived, but I was still pretty shaken, as were the cats, as they refused to leave my side. The cat ball was one of their favorite toys, and they refused to play with it after. I threw it away after about a month of them not playing with it, as it also brought me some discomfort. To this day, I don't watch ghost videos if I'm home alone, in case something like that ever happens again. My next experience happened about 3 years ago. I was about 23 at the time, and my boyfriend and I were moving out of his parents' house. We found a small 2-bedroom apartment with my best friends who were also dating, so it worked for us. It took us 2 days to get everything moved in, as the building didn't have an elevator, and we are on the top floor. The pets were still at my boyfriend's place, as it wasn't yet safe for them with all the boxes precariously placed. The 4 of us were sitting on the floor in the living room with a pizza in front of us. We finally had
everything in the apartment, and we begun unpacking in the next few days. It was around 5 p.m., and everyone who had helped us had left a few hours prior.
Suddenly, a door down our hallway opens and shuts. All four of us heard it. Our heads all whip around to see where the sound came from. My boyfriend went to go check it. Thank goodness he's braver than me. He disappeared down the hall for about 2 minutes before declaring that the coast was clear and nothing seemed any different. We sat down for the next 15 minutes before hearing it again. This time, one of my best friends went to check. Again, nothing. We all slept in the living room that night. Over the next few days, we got unpacked and I brought the pets over. About a month or so had passed since we moved in, and nothing else had happened until one night my best friends and I were home. I was washing dishes and she was watching TV, and guess what she was watching? A ghost video. My cats were in the room sleeping on my bed, and the door was open. We hear a slam. Not a gentle open and close of a door. No, it shook the walls. My cats came running for their lives out of the bedroom and hid under the couch. I went to go check, thinking they knocked something over and everything was fine. Nothing was moved. The doors were open. I was in my bedroom and my best friend was coming down the hall. I turned to look at her, and over her shoulder, there was a dark silhouette. It was huge. I would estimate about 8 feet tall and thin. It appeared to be a man. I couldn't distinguish any features other than that. And strangely, I wasn't afraid of him. But I told my best friend what I had seen, and she thought I had lost it. A few more weeks had passed, and because of our work schedules, I was alone with my best friend again. We're both on the couch enjoying our days off. I looked up, and at the end of the door of the hallway, there he was, the shadow I'd seen before. I quickly got her attention, and she looked to where I was looking. We both looked at him for about 5 minutes before he faded away. There are no stories of any deaths that occurred here, at least not that we could find. We looked for months. It sounds crazy, but we named him Nathaniel. We didn't just pick any random name. This was the name both of us blurted out when talking about it. It felt right. We only referred to him as such from then on. I'd seen Nathaniel pretty often for the next year and a half. My best friend only saw him once. In the next few months, one of my cats developed heart disease, and unfortunately, even with all the medications we had available to us, we couldn't save him. He passed away about 9 months ago. Now I haven't seen Nathaniel since then. No doors slamming, no shadows, nothing. I like to think that my fearless little kitty is protecting me, or that maybe Nathaniel was here to take him into the afterlife. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know. Thank you for taking the time to read through my experiences. Chantel. Hey Snook, first of all, thank you for your videos. I really enjoy them. I listen to them while working. They help me concentrate on my work. I've been wanting to share this story for quite some time and was really happy when he started accepting subscriber stories. Keep up the good work. Also, please excuse my English. I'm French. You can call me Clara. I attached some pictures to help comprehend my story and some evidence. Also, this took place in September 2022. At the time, I was living at my father's house in Montpellier, south of France, in a kind of sketchy neighborhood, but still okay. It was around 5 in the evening. My father was leaving to go to his rugby practice, and my boyfriend was with me in the house. Just as my father was leaving, the door rang. I got curious as to who it was, as we were not waiting for anybody. It was a couple with suitcases and a map. I managed to hear that they were asking for booking apartment in the residence. But as I knew everyone in the building, it seemed weird to me that one of them had listed their apartment on the internet as open for rental without informing me or my dad. My father sent them away, telling them they must have the wrong address. As I was eavesdropping, I did make eye contact with the lady, but that was it. 30 or so minutes later, I heard the building's door opening and someone knocking on my door. I was kind of suspicious as to whom it might be and decided not to open the door. I really regretted not having a peephole. The person reiterated their knocks, but without saying anything. My boyfriend and I stood silent behind the door, and I called my upstairs neighbor. He went down the stairs to see who was knocking on my door, but as his door opened, the person got out of the residence. I explained to my neighbor the situation, and he decided to check the mutual basement in the mutual garden, but nobody was there. My neighbor went back to his apartment. Meanwhile, I was trying to get my dad on the phone, but he was not answering. 30 minutes later, the same thing happened. Someone knocked on my door, but without speaking or anything. I called my neighbor, but the person got away once again. I was really worked out by that point. My dad was not answering his phone, and we couldn't comprehend why someone was knocking on my door like this and how they were able to get access to the inside of the residence. This was on about hour or two. You just can't imagine how stressed I was by the situation. We could have just opened the door, but for some reason I knew we should not. It was then that my father finally answered my phone. I told him what was happening, and he said he would be there in 20 minutes. At the same time that I hung up the phone, we started hearing voices on my balcony. The balcony had immediate access to the shared garden and was low enough that you could just climb on in. I was starting to cry and was really scared that we could be attacked by people who deliberately knew there was someone inside. Furthermore, they had only seen me and not my boyfriend. I called hysterically my dad once again. He told us to hide and that he was coming with friends from his rugby practice. I then called my neighbor to ask him to check from his balcony if someone was on mine. The voices had dried down by this point. No one was there anymore. Maybe they had heard him go out of his apartment onto his balcony. My dad finally arrived with his friends. They checked the whole residence, but nobody was there. I couldn't sleep that night, as I was terrified those people might come back. The morning after, I found the ad on Booking that there was one registered at my address. What was really weird were the
pictures, as none of the apartments looked like those, and that no one had registered their apartment for rental. My dad, neighbor, and I decided to call Booking to take down the ad. We had a really hard time getting them to do it, as they wanted us to file the police report for identity theft, and that it would take weeks to be able to take it down after that. I don't know how the ad got taken down, as my neighbor alone decided to call them back. All I know is that it was down in the afternoon. He knows that he had some good friends working as lawyers, so this must have helped. Anyways, that was all for my submission. It was terrifying, and this event contributed to part of my fear of intrusion. Once again, thanks for your work, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Clara. And all right, guys, that wraps up some terrifying, scary stories, and these were all sent in by you, and these ones were definitely more paranormal, so comment down below if you enjoyed the paranormal stories or not, or you want to see like more true ones. But yeah, these are just the stories you guys send in, and if you want your story sent in, please just send it to the email in the description or pin comment or whatever I do. And I just appreciate you watching to the end of the video. It means so much. You guys are the best. Please like and subscribe. Helps out the channel a ton. You don't even understand. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. This was Snook, and I'll see you next time. Bye.